Ken, is that you? Ken, is that you? Who's the Full Sail guest? Hi, who are you? What's your name? Go ahead, turn your camera on. This is Dr. John, New Media Marketing.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. Hi there.
Hi, my name is Valerie, and I'm gonna be one of the students this semester.
Excellent, Valerie.
Can't get the camera on, still trying to work on that.
Let me make sure that maybe I have to turn it on for you. Let's see. Well, it says ask to start video, so you should have a request from me, but now which section are you in?
I'm in the new media grad school.
Right.
Grad.
Section 1 or section 2? There you are.
I'm not quite sure. Give me 1 second.
Am I your instructor or is Ken Cossin?
You are my instructor.
Yes. Hold on a second. Our other instructor is trying to get in, so let me get him situated here. Okay. All right. Tell me your name again.
Valerie Lee.
Valerie, it's so nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Have you done Zoom in your other classes?
Yes, I have. And I'm learning the MacBook. And I usually would do it on my other computer, but I'm trying to learn the MacBook. So I said, no, if you're gonna learn it, you gotta learn to do everything on this device.
Okay, so let me see here. I want to try something out. If I could control my mouse properly. Oh, excellent. Okay. I love it when a plan comes together. Now the $64,000 question. Okay, we're good. I love it when we're good.
I'm sorry. What'd you say?
I just said I love it when things are working the way they're supposed to.
Yes, yes.
Which did you have a password that you used?
Yes.
What was the password?
243-072-1262.
What was it again?
No, that when you go into Zoom,
Yeah.
it's gonna ask you, do you want to join a meeting? And then I hit join a meeting and it asks you for the meeting ID. Then this is the meeting ID.
Hold on a second. Let me check something. Go ahead. Tell me the meeting ID.
243-072-1262.
That's it. And that's all it asked for, right?
Yes.
That's what I thought. That's a pretty noise. Hello, Sherry.
Hi, how are you?
Excellent, thanks. Welcome to New Media Marketing.
Thank you.
We'll get started in just a moment. I have some other folks that are having trouble getting in. You didn't have any
Okay.
trouble getting in, did you?
Well, I did because of the password, but then I went out and I just typed the number and the meeting number in, and it let me in that way.
That's so strange. So Sherry, what section are you in? Are you in section 1 or section 2?
I don't know. I didn't know that there was different sections.
Was I your instructor or was Ken Cossin?
Ken.
Ken, okay.
Yeah, Ken is my instructor too. I just looked it up.
Okay.
Oh, so there's two sections. I didn't realize that.
I'm texting with him. He's having trouble getting in.
Yeah, what I did was I went to the Zoom application and I just typed in the number
Uh-huh.
and it let me in that way instead of clicking the link.
Yeah, that's what I did. I have like a go-to meeting, the little app go-to meeting,
Uh-huh.
and then it says join a meeting, and I click join a meeting, I key in the ID, and it lets me right in.
Yep.
Hi, Sherry. It's nice meeting you.
Hi, nice meeting you too.
I think we did some other classes together.
Yeah.
Hey, Ken.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Hi.
It finally worked?
Yeah, I just typed in the meeting ID and it finally went through. I don't know why it kept asking me for a password when I would just click on the link. It's weird. So anyways, I'm here.
Excellent. Well, you know, like TikTok and some other things, Zoom is technically owned by a foreign government,
Yeah.
and there's every once in a while I see some weird stuff. But so I think I guess we've got everybody. We're recording, so there'll be a record of this. My sessions. I was asking them what their experience was with Zoom before. Actually, I asked um, Valerie, but I didn't ask Sherry. Sherry, what's your experience been with Zoom sessions in the past?
So, well, actually, recently, it's quite frequently, especially for work. We were actually using Skype up until about 6 months ago, and our company moved over to Zoom, which was luckily because of everything with COVID. So now, because most people are working from home, that we use Zoom all the time.
And in your other Full Sail classes, what was your experience like?
Um, it was good. This is kind of the first time that I've had like the live, because it felt like it was more just one like my instructor talking to us.
I'll talk to you a little bit. Or talk to you a little bit, but I try to make it more a conversation.
Mhm.
And with Ken here, there's no way I can just talk at you, because he'll say, "Hey, I got something to say,"
Yeah.
and so it'll work well. A little bit of information with regard to myself, and actually Ken and I. We started. Ken, I think we started on the same day, November
Yeah.
3rd.
Yep. November 3rd, 12 years ago.
Yeah, 2008. So we've been at this at Full Sail for a long time, and we've been partners in crime for a long time. Our when we're in the office, our desks are right across from each other, and oftentimes I really feel bad because I go to the office to socialize and see what's going on and get ideas and whatnot. And I worry that other people are there to actually do work. And Ken and I usually end up solving all the problems in the world in a matter of a 2 or 3 hour conversation, and nothing else has gotten done. So just a little bit of background there. I actually my background is very diverse. I've got a military background. I've got a retail background. Uh, I'm a gemologist. Um, I've worked for many years for the Walt Disney Company. I was an operator and a internal strategy consultant. What that meant was that I would get deployed to various executives around property whenever there was a complex organizational problem that they were trying to solve, and I would help them think through those issues. A number of my first assignments were to the sales and marketing organization at Walt Disney, and the first large-scale project, we actually used to call it a HIPS project, um, high involvement process solving. We totally reorganized. Give me a second. We totally reorganized the global Walt Disney World marketing organization um, from a localized version to being able to operate globally, and that gave me the opportunity to get way mired in the mud of all marketing's processes, and actually got to help develop the formal way that Walt Disney marketing and its advertising component treat creative briefs. So we developed the whole creative brief process as part of that larger project. From there, I got into the motorized screen business right before the housing industry crashed. Motorized screens are used on, actually, we were a screen replacement company. We were a distributor for Phantom screens out of Canada, but motorized screens are what are used in outdoor living areas. So if you have an outdoor kitchen or you've got a pool area and with a porch that's undercover, and if you're trying to protect it from mosquitoes or any bug, from excessive sun or excessive heat, then our product was a viable solution. But that occurred, got into that in 2006, and of course in the end of 2008 is when the housing industry began to crash, and the global market began to crash as well. And from there, I was thinking, do I really want to go back into corporate America? And I said, what would I like to do if there was anything out there other than going back with a large corporation? And I said, I'd really like to teach and share what I've learned over the years. And I opened up Monster, and there were a number of jobs at Full Sail, and I always say it was serendipity because it took me 2.5 years to get hired at Disney. I had over 35 interviews before I was hired at Disney, and with Full Sail, it was I had a job offer in less than 2 weeks. So I said it has to be magic, had to be a perfect fit. So that's how I got here, and I've taught a number of courses at this university and other universities prior to coming, but here I've primarily focused on marketing topics. I developed the Excel course, the Excel data reporting course. I originally had the market research course. I've done display advertising, and now I do new media marketing, and you'll also, are you both in the degree program?
Yes.
Okay, then you'll see me in month 9 as your public relations instructor as well. And then I usually end up teaching another class, much like Ken will tell you he does, and oftentimes that varies all over the globe. Both Ken and I just recently were teaching cultural studies on the web, which was quite fun. So that's a little bit about me. Let me. Oh, on a personal note, I play the trumpet. I've been married for just about 40 years, and my wife and I, we have 5 lovely children. 2 of them happen to be Full Sail graduates, and one of them from the program that you're in. My daughter Kristen, and Ken, if he thinks I'm not listening, may tell you something about Kristen, but she's doing extremely well right now. She's 6 years out from her degree, and she's making a ton of money using her degree, so much that I've got to have 5 jobs just to keep equal with her. So I'm very excited about the way that your degree program that you're in can prepare you and put you in a position to have just an absolutely wonderful career down the road. So with that, let me turn it over to Ken. And Ken, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, John. I really appreciate that. It's really interesting to me that it's been 6 years since Kristen had come through, John's daughter, had come through the master's program. And she actually was in the new media marketing class when I was teaching it. And it was that long ago. I can't believe it. It blows my mind how quickly time has gone. But kind of getting to a little bit of my background, if you haven't read my bio yet in the FSO platform, I'll just give you a brief synopsis, and you could always take a look at it more in depth when you get the opportunity. But I started out working for the state of Florida. That was my first career after my professional career after I got out of college with my bachelor's degree. And my bachelor's is in environmental engineering, which you're probably thinking to yourself, well, you know, environmental engineering is way over here and marketing's way over here. But what's really interesting at the state of Florida, you're given the opportunity to do a lot of different things and wear a ton of different hats. So even though I was doing a lot of environmental work, they saw that I had the ability to, I had a lot of technical skills in terms of creating websites and you know, with the internet being brand new back in the early 90s, mid 90s, the state actually came to me and asked me if I would create a website for them, and which was all new to them. So I actually started building the state of Florida Department of Environmental Protection website for them. And then ultimately, years later, I handed that over to a web development and design group. But then another thing that they asked me to do, they asked me to be the editor-in-chief of our department's newsletter because they saw that I had a lot of technical writing skills in my background, and they wanted to tap into that. And that was an awesome part of my job. I loved it because I had people submitting technical work, and I would go through and edit all of this work, this technical work. So I had to have the knowledge and experience in the environmental field to understand what they were talking about, but at the same time, I had to have creative skill and ability in order to edit this material so it made sense to the everyday person who was not living, eating, breathing the environmental world. So that was a ton of fun. And then once I decided I was going to move along from that career, I started getting into doing database administration, further did a little bit more web design development. I did a lot of corporate training. And then eventually I moved on to a large law firm here in Orlando. I was working for them in their information technology department. And once again, they discovered that I had all these other skills. So they started tapping into them, and they had me helping the marketing department promote the law firm and put together events, help organize them, connect with our client base. We had 12 different offices around the state, from Tallahassee all the way down to Key West. So it was a very challenging, but it was also a very rewarding type of career. Then one day I, just like John, I was kind of thinking to myself, you know, I need to start applying my master's degree, because by that time I had finished my master's degree in corporate communication and technology from Rollins College. And I was trying to find a way to incorporate that into my career. And at the law firm, that was kind of limited, with the exception of the assistance I was providing to the marketing department. But I happened to go on my computer and I saw a job posting at Full Sail, and I was like, you know, I'm going to apply for this. Why not? And just by chance, it came together, and within 5 days, I had a job working over at Full Sail, and I couldn't be happier. I've been here 12 years now, and I'm really happy. But I've done at Full Sail, I've done a lot in terms of content marketing. I've done a lot of blogging for various blogs around the world. based out of Australia and England, all over the United States. I also worked for about a year at the Los Angeles Film School, which is the sister school for Full Sail. And I worked in there.
That's where you were.
Yes. So for a little while, I was doing kind of two jobs, but they both were Full Sail related. I was in entertainment business with Los Angeles Film School and the digital marketing degrees at the Los Angeles Film School and digital marketing at Full Sail. So, and then of course at Full Sail, they give us a lot of leadership courses, and I've of course pursued those because I love leadership. I think that it's a really interesting field, which kind of led me to become the president of the American Marketing Association of Orlando. I was with the AMA for probably 4 years at least. I started out doing some communications work for them, social media work as well, coordination of events, working with the Women in Film and Television, the Florida Public Relations Association, AIGA, and also a couple of other organizations and local sports venues. So I do have quite a varied background and career, but I hope that it was somewhat interesting to you guys and that you enjoyed hearing about it.
Thanks,
It
Ken.
was.
That was. I had actually forgot about LA Film School. It's pretty cool. So how about you all share with us? Valerie, tell us what part of the country you're in and what you're doing currently and what you hope to do with this degree.
Right now, I live in Baltimore, Maryland, and I am currently a real estate agent. And what I plan to do with this degree is take real estate to another level for the lower income, for the next generation, to make sure that they understand ownership. And everybody is into the media right now, into social media channels. So just trying to make sure that its presence in the social media with that aspect in mind.
Excellent. So are you like in downtown Baltimore, or are you out in one of the outlying areas like
I'm in one of the outlining areas, but I have a road that takes me straight down to downtown Baltimore.
so
I'm in
what
Woodlawn.
you're in
Woodlawn,
Woodlawn?
Maryland.
I know Woodlawn.
Yes. I live right here in Woodlawn. I can go right down Ricestown Road, which is about two minutes from my house, and it takes you all the way straight downtown.
My my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, they live in Catonsville.
Okay.
My client, I have a jazz client from Baltimore, and he lived in Catonsville, but he spends most of his time over in he just sold his business last year, and now he's retired. He was actually a musician way back in the 60s when he was just getting out of high school. He was in a group called Bob Brady and the Concords. And are you a music fan?
Before my time.
What's that?
That was a little bit before my time.
Okay, but are you a music fan?
No.
Ah, well, then I'll make it short and sweet. I always thought it was neat because Bob Brady and the Concords, the tagline or the story on Bob Brady was that he was more Smokey Robinson than Smokey Robinson. If you listen to the two of them, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But Bob Brady and the Concords, they were what was known as blue-eyed soul. And consequently, because of the genre that they were singing, they were picked up by Motown, one of Motown's labels, Chariot Records. They were the first non-black group that Motown signed.
Wow.
And that was right around the time of the Vietnam War. And so in order to not get drafted right into into the Army, a number of them, Jim included, ended up going to college. They went to Townsend State. And then he ended up getting into the financial business, and then eventually ended up becoming a financial planner with his own company down the road. But around the time he turned 64, he said to himself, I wonder if I could make it in the music business. And at 64, Jim did not want to perform anymore. He just wanted to produce music and see if people would like it. So he's my client. We've been producing campaigns and elevating his stature in the jazz world for almost, not quite as long as I've been at Full Sail, but let's call it 10 and a half years.
Okay.
So kind of exciting there. What's your undergrad degree?
I have an undergrad in information systems. Well, actually, no, that's my first master's. I started out in healthcare management, and I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. So I studied at University of Phoenix, got my first bachelor's degree, healthcare administration. Said that wasn't what I wanted to do. Went back to University of Phoenix for information systems. Realized that market is really high in demand. So that's when I came over to Full Sail to do digital marketing.
Excellent. So if you're one thing I know about University of Phoenix is that's a school that you write a lot of papers.
Yes.
So you are probably very proficient at writing papers.
Yes. And that's why I said I got to get back over to the technology part of the business. University of Phoenix, yes, we do a lot of writing. We did a lot of writing.
Excellent. Sherry, what about you?
So I live in northern Georgia, which is about 2 hours north of Atlanta. I moved here about 2 years ago from the Eastern Long Island. I work for a company on Long Island. It's called Nature's Bounty. And when I was moving here, I moved here because my boyfriend's here. So when I was moving here, they asked if I wanted to do it remote. So I'm an executive assistant there. So I've been working with them remotely for a couple of years, but I want to get out of the executive assistant role. And I've always been interested in marketing, and also learning, like I've always been interested in learning how to like make businesses grow, like getting them out there. And so this is what it excites me,
Cool. So what's your undergrad degree?
So my undergrad is in communications and psychology, but then I also have an MBA from Ashford, and that was a lot of papers. so it's nice with this curriculum because it's not just papers. I feel like I felt like with my MBA, I did learn like a higher set of thinking. But I'm getting a lot out of this curriculum, which I'm very happy about.
Well, actually, the MBA curriculum I had when I was at Disney, when I joined the organization development department, my boss was a lady by the name of Sandy Richmond. She was a PhD, and her degree was, she was an industrial organizational psychologist. And I joined the program. I was hired for the department with only a bachelor's degree. And so I was put in what was called the Walt Disney Fellowship Program. And I had to obtain my master's within the first 2 years that I was in that program. And so I sat down with Sandy on one of our first one-on-ones, and I said, okay, so there's a couple options that I could do here. I could go get an MBA, or I could get a master's of organizational management, which was a master of science versus the MBA. And I said, which one do you think I should do? And she goes, go get the MBA. The MBA tells people that you know numbers. And that's a very important message to send. She said, by the time you're done working for me, you'll have the equivalent of a PhD in organizational leadership. So that doesn't matter as much.
Yeah. Oh, that's good to hear.
My doctorate is actually in educational technology and leadership. So that's my doctorate. My MBA actually has a focus on technology management as well. So great backgrounds that you bring to this class. And let me tell you a little bit about the class and how it was derived. The class was originally written by somebody else that was hired on November 3rd, and that started with Ken and I, and that was a lady by the name of Carrie Gorgone. Carrie is now an associate of Marketing Prof. So if you're ever actually in the first discussion post, you'll see we send you to Marketing Profs to pick out a podcast or article and listen and then respond to it through a new media type of lens. But Carrie is a major component at Marketing Profs now. She's also an attorney, which is kind of neat. But Ken and I had the opportunity to work again side by side with Carrie for many, many years before she moved on to Marketing Profs. She designed this course, and it's gone through a couple of
Iterations.
Say that again.
Iterations.
You're much kinder. I was going to say, modifications. It's kind of like a house that's been remodeled several times. There's some new carpeting over here, some new cabinets in the kitchen, and new shower in one of the bathrooms. So it's really kept the flavor of what Carrie envisioned, and that was that new media. So when you think about new media, you're probably saying to yourself, why don't you just call this social media? Because isn't new media social media? Well, it is, but it's kind of a broader context. What Carrie envisioned, and the textbook that you have, by the way, the Think Like a Rock Star by Matt Collier, it's like 130 pages, and my daughter told me when she was taking this course, she goes, it's the only textbook I've read from cover to cover. Now, let me tell you something. My daughter, when she was younger, we used to take her to the library, and she would come home with about 8 or 9 books each week, and she would read 8 or 9, and we're talking substantial books. So she's always been a reader, but she said this one she read from cover to cover, and she said it was extremely enjoyable and extremely easy to read. She said she did it in an evening. So whether you do it in an evening or you spread it out a little bit, read the book and understand the book, because what we look for in your assignments is, number one, that you're using the information from the textbook back into the assignment and building your assignment around that core. We also want additional resources too, that you can add in and take a look at. And I'll show you the rubric in just a moment. And Ken, I don't think I sent you the grading rubrics. I need to do that this morning.
Well, I think are they attached to they're attached to
the rubrics. I thought I did most of them, but I may have one or two that the paperclip came out and it's no longer on the page.
Oh, okay.
Just to be safe, I'm going to make sure I send them to you. They coincide with the main rubric, but they're broken down so that the grading feedback's a little bit easier to understand. But the one thing that's critical is that you take the information from the book and roll it back into what you're presenting to us, so that you've got that. So the way the course is laid out, Matt Collier, who wrote the book, he envisions influencers much like a rock star would have, that people are fans of the rock star and they want to share the message about the rock star. Now, I always, whenever I think of this and I think of raving fans, I think of two companies. When I was at Disney, both in operations and then the rest of my career, we always talked about the real Disney fanatics, the real, I won't repeat this, and even though it's being recorded, the real Disney wackadoos. And you're probably saying to yourself, what's a Disney wackadoo? I'll tell you. Are you familiar with pin trading? Do you know what pin trading is? Little cloisonne pins. It actually started in 1996, about an hour and a half from where you are, Sherry, in Atlanta, in the '96 Olympics. And people would get a lanyard and they'd put these little cloisonne pins on them, and then they trade them. And there you go. Ken's got one.
This is actually an exclusive from a preview of the Star Wars. Actually, I have two, and my dog is climbing, chewing my ear. From when I got to do a preview of the Star Wars land at Disney. So
that's awesome.
I'm not a wackadoo, but
no. Well, let me tell you what a wackadoo is. I had a guest. Now, during my operations career, I ran the World of Disney at Disney, what is Disney Springs now, and the World of Disney is the world's largest character store. That was part of my tenure in operations, and when we would do a pin release, we released pins just about every week. But big pin release, I should say every other week, because that's where the big pin releases were. And we'd always include a limited edition in the big pin release. So every other week throughout the year. I had a gentleman that lived in one of the suburbs of Philadelphia. And every other week he would, and we would do our pin releases on Friday mornings. He would get in his car, and it was a minivan, and he would drive from Pennsylvania to Florida. He'd make the trip overnight, so he would be at the front door of the World of Disney at 9 o'clock when the doors open, and the pins were available, so that he would make sure that he got the pin releases for that week. He'd get the releases, spend the day. I don't know where he went after he got done with us, but then he'd go home. And 2 weeks later, he'd make the same drive again. I saw this gentleman for a year and a half doing that every 2 weeks. I think the travel time from Philadelphia to Orlando, straight shot, is about 19 hours in the car. Crazy.
Yeah.
But that's a fan. And he would tell everybody, about his pens. And this is really before, the internet existed back then, but it was CompuServe and America Online. So it wasn't like we've got today. Web 2.0 did not exist then. So, but that's a fan. And that's what in this course, we're going to teach you how to tap into those type of fans. And we actually differentiate influencers in two ways. So you have influencers that are your raving fans, and you want to show them and cultivate them so that they'll share the message, your message, with other people. So you have to cultivate and curate a message to share. Then there's also real influencers. Now, what's a real internet influencer? Well, let me come back. There's a couple types of these. So you had influencers in society that were celebrities, and celebrities, if a celebrity endorsed a product, we would call it a celebrity endorsement. I love Pepsi, buy it because I'm John Reneski. Or better yet, I'm Michael Jordan, buy my Michael Jordan Nikes. So those are influencers. And then they moved on to the internet and they did the same thing on the internet. But we have to pay those people money, a lot of money, to get them to say what we want them to say. Then you have another group of people that are on the internet that their goal was to become as famous through their antics on the internet as a regular celebrity. And they become internet celebrities, and they, if you want one of their endorsements, you're going to have to pay big time as well. Then we have another group, and I like to call this group, really what they are is new media journalists. And you're actually looking at one that's very successful right now, and that's Ken. Ken's got a great blog, and if you haven't seen it, he's going to tell you about it, and you should follow it because Ken is right on things. So if I have a message I want to get out, I'll pick up the phone and text Ken or send a message and say, hey, Ken, can we put this on your blog? Can you share this somehow? And I know it's going to get a lot of eyeballs on it because Ken is a blogger. He's a new media journalist, and he's got a lot of followers. And in many instances, from that perspective, Ken is the exact model of what I'm looking for in terms of an influencer on the internet. Now, he may not align with my product, so maybe I don't want him for this particular campaign. But if his blogs and his messages and his interests align with my organization, my products, my services, then that would be a good fit. Otherwise, I got to go find somebody else. Does that make sense? I know I've been kind of rambling a little bit, but
Yes, it makes good sense.
okay.
Yeah, it does.
So that's and how we cultivate those people is really an art. And it's something that doesn't happen right away. It's not like, okay, I'm launching my business and I need traffic to my website. What am I going to do? I'm going to do an AdWord campaign. I'm going to go into Google and I'm going to set up an AdWord campaign. Or I'm going to go into Google and set up a display campaign. Or Facebook, I'll do a Facebook ad. Those kind of actions have immediate return. They also cost a lot. But with going the influencer route, you're building a relationship, and it's going to take a little bit longer, but the results are usually much stronger. And I'll tell you why. Because when we make it personal, what we're really doing, and this is a component of social media marketing, we're actually showing social proof. So if Ken writes about, hey, take a look at my friend John's idea or service or model, by him doing that, or he doesn't even have to say my friend, he can say this quack John, but I think it's pretty good. He's providing what's known as social proof. And that social proof is the crux of how we leverage the different media. So one of the things that I want to, concepts that I want to share in this initial session is that new media marketing, when we talk about media, a lot of times we don't understand all that goes into new media. And I'm looking because normally I have a book sitting here.
I shared in the chat window with you guys a picture, and I said I may look like a celebrity, but I'm not. I
Well,
look like Conor McGregor, everybody says, so.
yes, you do, and as wiry as. But I gave you the Disney example, and the other example I was thinking of, and it was because of your shirt, Ken, and that is another big company that you see a lot of fans is Apple. Now, I'm one of the guys that bought the original Apple Macintosh back in 1984. I've been a fan of the company since that point. Actually, going back when I was working in New York City in the jewelry business in the manufacturing side, I was wore the hat of a production manager in the factory, and I had mainframes that processed all our custom orders, but all the other computing that we did, all the additional analysis and so forth, I did on an Apple IIe. So I guess you could say I go all the way back to the Apple IIe in terms of my liking Apple products. But another good example is all the people that are just fanatic about being associated with Apple products. That's why when you buy an Apple, do you know how they give you the little decal? They always do that because people want to share that they're what was the campaign many years ago? Think differently, buy an Apple, and who thinks differently but geniuses? So if I'm using an Apple, then I must be a genius. Like how that works? Anyway, a gentleman by the name of, this is not going to work. Hold on a second.
The Ghost Book.
Yeah, that's interesting. My background, by the way, and I'll send you the link. I'll send Ken the link so he can share it with you. I last month, actually, I guess it was April. I did an interview. Any of you familiar with the TV show Bar Rescue on Paramount Network? I had John Taffer as my guest, and I kid everybody that we started the interview and he looked at my office and he said, I can't work in there. And so we had an office rescue, and the result was this bar in the background. There we go. And the reason I wanted to interview John Taffer, just FYI, in each of his shows, he incorporates the concept of influencers in order to relaunch the rescued bar. So the concept of an influencer is very integral in that show. So if you get the chance, just take a look at the shows. But in particular, I'm going to share the link with you. John and I had a great conversation. We had a lot of students participate in the session. We were almost at 50 participants, and we had some great questions from the students at the end as well. And you'll see how that ties into a lot of the things that we're talking about. Anyway, this book is Understanding Media, and it's by Marshall McLuhan. And Marshall McLuhan wrote this in the 60s. You're saying, how can a book written in the 60s have anything to do with new media or social media? Well, what Marshall McLuhan identified was that you've probably heard this. The medium is the message. In other words, whatever medium we're using, that's the real point. And we'll get into that later down the road. But begin to think about that. Where is your target market? Where do they interact? And then those mediums are where you're going to have to think about how you package your messages. So, for example, if your target market is on Instagram, what kind of messages do you need to package for your target market? A lot of visual, a lot of photos. If your target is spends its time in Twitter, you're gonna have to be really witty and learn how to send out really cool tweets at 280 characters, which, by the way, is a lot better than when it was 140. Or was it?
Mm-hmm.
Really had to be clever when it was 140. You know, and Facebook's a little bit longer, but it's still a shorter message. If it's a blogger, you know, what do you have to provide your, if your people like to spend time on blogs and so forth, what kind of message do you need to share? So that's going to also help determine the type of influencers that you're looking for to make sure that you're catching all your different segments. Ken, I haven't scratched the surface yet. We're at 11:50. I just looked at the time. Do you have time to go a little bit longer?
I do.
I do too.
Ken, how about you?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want, I can talk a little bit about the assignment for this week, like the personas, goals, and strategy, and just give some ideas, and then you can expand on it.
Go right ahead. I like that.
Okay. So thinking about personas, kind of going along with what John was saying, you really want to try to know and understand your audience. And one of the best ways to do that, obviously, is in-person type of conversations. Right now, during the COVID-19 issue, we can't really do in-person types of conversations and interactions with our customers. It's very limited. So there are many other ways and other tools that we can use, especially in 2020, such as surveys. For instance, when I go to Walgreens, on my receipt, there at the bottom of the receipt, it has a little survey in order to get information from me, and they're hoping that I will actually review that receipt and consider actually providing some feedback. While that type of information you're getting from your consumer might sound a little superficial on the surface, there actually is a deeper meaning to it, because it allows us to start thinking in a very strategic fashion about our consumers. So what is our consumer looking for? What are their wants, their needs, their desires? How can I monetize, or what are ways that I can monetize what I'm doing? So that way it doesn't just feel like I'm spinning my wheels. If we were to, for example, let's think about when we create content. John was speaking earlier about bloggers. And when we think of someone who writes short form or long form type of content and puts it out there, that particular person may be interested in providing information to a particular consumer organization.
I think so, yeah.
But that person is also trying to show or demonstrate to their business or their company that there's value behind creating content. Well, how do they do that? They collect data. They collect statistics and information on the readers of that information. They're collecting information about consumer reaction to that content. And then they're providing that back to the managers, the supervisors, the leaders of the business, so that way they can prove value. So that is, to me, what strategy is really about. Always making sure that you're trying to prove value for something that you're doing. You're not doing it just for the sake of doing it. The other thing is not only considering the content or the media that we're creating, but the way in which we're creating that media. Is it in the form of a podcast? Is it in the form of written material? Is it in the form of a video? Is it person-to-person interaction? Is it a webinar? Is it a conference? Is it an event? So all of these things are a form of media, and they all feed one another, and they feed that big picture that we're searching for. And as marketers, we have to have our finger on the pulse of each of those in order to bring value and reason and purpose back to our businesses, whether that business is something we own or it's a business that we're working for. If we think about why people are promoted into management positions, we're like, okay, well, they do administrative work, or they review time cards, or they do this, that. They do a lot more than that. They look at the actual value that whatever is being done within that group is bringing back to the organization. They're looking at money, how much money is being made and brought back to the organization. So these are important things for the manager or the leader to be looking at. How is everything that is being done being monetized? How is it being converted into an idea, a concept, and then a reality, and then ultimately into money and results? So, but those are just some real quick thoughts that I had on the assignment for this week. I'm not necessarily speaking exactly to the assignment, but sort of around it. What are your thoughts, John?
Let me just add to that, so you're not going to have a chance to go out and do surveys and or do interviews. So another approach is you can do action research on the internet. And for this assignment for your week one, you could probably pencil whip it, but we would know. You want to go out and do some real digging. So what does that mean? That means you go out and you take a look at the various channel strategies that your case study company is using, and look and see on their Instagram, for example, who's responding, who's interacting with them on Instagram, and start to build profiles of those people. What can you learn from a demographic? What can you learn from a geographic? Where are they located? What can you learn in terms of a psychographic? What they're thinking, what their values are, and then also what are their behaviors? What can you ascertain from what they're posting? What their behaviors are? You know, it's kind of scary, and I worry about this every month, because guess what we're telling you to do? Guess what we're teaching you to do?
What's that?
We're teaching you to be internet stalkers.
But I have a question.
Yeah,
now,
go
with
ahead.
my case study, they don't have Instagram, Twitter. So would I be able to do it off of Facebook? Because all they have is Facebook.
If all their social media interaction is on Facebook, then that makes it easy for you. You have one segment.
Okay.
That you're looking at. Now, I thought you were going to say they don't do social media.
Well, they only do Facebook, so they're not into the Instagram, the Twitters, the blogs, or the podcasts. This is what I'm trying to get them into, because again, we're focusing on the younger generation. That's what all they do.
Okay.
If you tell them the street is green, first thing they're gonna say, "Can I Google that? Can I look that up?" They Google everything. So we're in a world right now where their main frame is Google it. Google it. I'm Googling it. You want to learn how to change a tire? Let me go Google it. Let me go YouTube it. Mm-hmm. So you want to buy a house? They think that they can buy a house off of YouTube. And I'd be like, good luck.
I just wrote an article on that. That's not too far away. Um, if Zillow has their way, it'll happen next month, but we're ways away. Anyway, so if they don't have any social media whatsoever, you're kind of in a bind. No, we got a solution for you. You've got a solution. You're going to take a look at other companies in that industry that they may be competition, they may not, but if they're in the same marketplace, take a look at their customers, take a look at their target market and how their folks are interacting on social media, and use that as your research area. Now, let me tell you a little something about the master's program. Before I get into the measurement component, and Ken, that was great, by the way. I'm gonna add that to the permanent archive. In a master's program, and you said that you have had masters before, both of you. So I may be preaching to the choir, but I want you to hear it from me directly, that we don't give you everything you need in order to be successful. What? Because we don't do that, because part of being a master is learning how to master a content area. So we give you a little bit of information with regard to personas, and we're giving you some ideas here, but you probably need to go out and do some research on your own, pull up a couple articles and whatnot on what personas are like, and add that to what we're giving you both in lecture and in terms of Matt Collier's book. Okay. So in a master curriculum, you're going to have to research two different ways. Sometimes just on the process, the ideal state that you're shooting for, and add to the knowledge that the curriculum is providing you. And then you have to research to get to the actual answers that you need as it relates to the problem or the process that we're doing. The master's mindset is a strategic mindset. You're always moving from point A to point B. Keep this in mind. At the end of this course, you're gonna have an assignment that's going to be around measurement, and you're going to have to say, here was our starting point, here was our end point, and this is what we did to get to the end point. And guess what? What we did cost less than how much we improved. Because if what we, and sometimes what we did may cost more than the gain that we actually achieved, that's okay. It happens from time to time. We just know we're not going to do that again, or we're going to do it differently, so that we do have good results. Remember this: whoever controls the numbers controls the world. So not only are we teaching you to be stalkers, but we're teaching you how to be stalkers and control the rest of the world as well. So that's how you got to do the action research with regard to build the personas. Now let's talk about goals. In the assignment, we talk about macro and micro, and I'll explain those terms in a minute, but let me speak about a hierarchy of goals. Give me a second here.
I just shared in the chat window a YouTube video, since we were talking about YouTube, on goal setting. It's called Smart Goals, and it's actually, I have it as one of the things to look at within the assignment. I put that link in there. You'll see it. But it's a really simple video, and it goes over what SMART means or stands for, what that acronym means. And you'll be thinking and using this concept throughout all of the assignments. I think that will really lead you to the correct place where you want to be with respect to understanding the purpose behind this course.
Okay, so let me talk about goals. Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
when we talk about strategy, oftentimes strategy is envisioned as a pyramid, because your top level strategy at the very top, and then what you're doing is you're pushing objectives and goals throughout, all the way down to where you can ultimately look at individual metrics or individual actions. And so when we talk about mission, what we're talking about is, why does the organization exist today, for whom, and to what extent? So whenever you hear a mission statement, you should be able to answer those three questions. I'll give you a quick example. If one of you can go to and look up the Nike mission statement, it's always a good one to take a look at, because it's very, very short. Mr. Cruz, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
I'm just here at work. That's why I was, you know,
Oh, glad you came in.
I don't do. Is that it?
So who can read to me the mission statement?
Well, the mission
Inspiration.
statement for 2020, to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world.
Do you think that answers all three of the questions I threw out there?
Okay, it's the how, it's
So
the
the
why.
Let me give them to you again. Why does the company exist? For whom and to what extent?
Yes, it does.
Why does the company exist?
To bring inspiration and innovation.
Beautiful. That was awesome. For whom
Athletes.
and to what extent?
To the world.
To the world. How many words is that? Is that like 11 words?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yes.
11 words, and they answered all three questions. So that explains why an organization exists. Now, if we're in the marketing department, we've got to do things that support. If we're in the marketing department for Nike, we've got to do things that support that mission statement, right? Otherwise, we should be working for a different company. So that's, the mission statement always sets the goal for everybody else. Now, let me talk to you about the difference between objectives and goals. And by the way, this is an interesting conversation. I'm going to teach you vocabulary constraint for this course. Depending on the organization that you're working for, they may have their own vocabulary constraints. But I've tried, as a leadership PhD, strategy is a very big part of my doctoral work. And I've taken a look at strategy over the years, and goal setting and whatnot. And I think this is the biggest cut, or the biggest agreement that you'll find with regard to the way that these words should be used. So an objective, what's an objective? An objective is a statement that's inspirational of what we want to do. So if I'm working for Nike, an objective I might have is to provide a whole lot of equipment to athletes. That's inspirational. There's no quantification to it. There's no number associated with it. But if I add a number, and if I say, I want to provide, let's say, running shoes. I want to increase our running shoe sales next year by 10%. I've taken an objective that was lofty and just kind of pointed me in the direction. And now I've taken it and I've quantified it by adding a number to it. And so once we add the number, it becomes a goal. Now, you may be saying to yourself, everybody keeps talking about SMART goals. What are SMART goals? Well, a SMART goal is taking that objective, making it a goal, and then making sure that it's measurable, that it's actionable, something that can really be done, that it's relevant. I'm going to come back to relevant because that one needs some explaining, and that it is time bound. So if I say I want to increase running sales by 10% in the next 12 months, I've now made that a SMART goal. If the relevant part is right. The relevant part, this is only my fourth one this morning. The caffeine hasn't taken control yet, so don't worry. The relevant means, how does that align back upstream? So does that particular goal align, in this case, to the mission? Okay? If it aligns, then it's SMART. So what happens is we set objectives, we set goals from objectives, and then we say, okay, Mr. Marketer, how are you going to achieve that 10% next year? And so we start to list different things that we can do. Those are the strategies. But really, a strategy without a number attached to it is just an objective. If we take the strategy and then put some sort of quantifying number to it, then it becomes a lower level goal. See how that works? So we're always moving down. And ultimately, we get down to KPIs. Now, in this course, we talk about macros and micros. You can start with the micro goal in mind, but the way it should read is, here's the macro, and here's how I'm going to support that macro with these micros. Meaning, here's the higher level goal, and here's how I'm going to support it with lower level goals. These are the things I got to do in order to make that happen. Now, in this class, you need to identify macros and micros. Now, from a macro standpoint in marketing, there's really not that many goals to choose from. Some experts say that really there's only three. We can talk about lift. We can talk about brand lift or awareness. We can talk, so that would be a goal. We need to, or an objective. We need to improve the awareness of the brand, make it more noticeable. Then we need to talk about conversions, right? We ultimately need to have people buy whatever it is we're selling, whether it's an idea, a service, or a product. So conversions are another marketing goal that's rather universal. Now, you can see how you can customize these, I hope, but in terms of the general category. And then the last one is really around long-term value, LTV, of the customer. How do we get more and more productivity out of each and every customer? So as you're thinking about, because we ask you to set up macros and micros in week one, think about that top tier goal that you have to set, or maybe you have one or two, but then ask yourself, what do we have to do in order to solve them? Now, the reason I said earlier you could start at the lower level from a mindset is because, what class is this? It's new media marketing.
New media.
So if your goal is to create brand awareness, if that's a macro goal, create brand awareness, then what's one of your strategies that you're going to use to develop some sort of new media marketing campaign?
Yeah.
And then you can take the new media marketing campaign and you can say, well, what do we need to do in order to get that done? And now you can set up another tier. Okay. Now, let's say that your goal is actually conversions. Again, this is a new media marketing class. So what's one of the tools that you're going to use to achieve a higher sales rate, higher conversion rate? new media marketing. But how you look at new media marketing and some of the things that you're going to do in new media marketing may be a little bit different than if you were focusing on brand awareness. So what ends up happening is you can list out and identify your top tier, your objective, then ask the question, how do I achieve that? What are the things I need to do? Those are the strategies. And then you can say, well, how do I get that done? And what are the specific tactics? Now, you don't have to drill down too far in week one. You'll get there in by week four. But in this week, identify the macro goals that we just talked, some of the macros that we just talked about, and then look at new media marketing as the focus of the tool. And then you could ask yourself, what are we going to need to do in new media marketing? And if you're reading Matt Collier, a lot of that will be very, very evident in addition to whatever other research that you have. So any questions?
I was going to just mention something real quick. For simplicity's sake, this is just the way my brain works. I'm kind of doing a brain dump for everybody. When I'm thinking of macro conversions, what I try to do is I try to think of ways of bringing money or monetizing a business, monetizing what I'm doing, and how to use new media to support that. And then when I'm thinking of micro conversions, I'm thinking not necessarily about the monetization anymore. It's now like a subset of that monetization. I'm thinking about things as creating a newsletter. Okay, people can download this newsletter, or they sign up with an email address. So now I'm collecting email addresses and I can do email marketing or something like that. So that's the way I make a differentiation regarding micro and macro. That macro is where the money is, and micro is where the actual work comes in.
That's that, and Ken, you're absolutely right. As you're looking here, that would be the strategy, and then the tactic that you would be using. So from the that's ultimately where you're trying to drive down to, is you want to make sure that you're getting to that tactical level, but how that tactical level then aligns back up to achieve the goals. Well, great examples, Ken.
Thank you.
Okay, now one last thing to just cover very quickly. What are metrics?
Is it the measurements of how you achieve these?
Yeah, whatever we can measure, that we can put a number to, that's a metric. And a KPI, what is a KPI?
Key performance indicator.
Right. Is a KPI a metric?
Yes, it can be.
Is a metric a KPI?
No.
It could be. Not all metrics are KPIs, but all KPIs are metrics. Okay? A key
Okay.
performance indicator is an indication of that really encapsulates your performance in that particular area. So revenue could be a KPI. If I'm building a website and I want to understand how a particular page is performing, I could, and as I'm looking at that particular aspect, the KPI for that aspect could be bounce rate. But yet I may consider bounce rate in as a metric in other areas, and it not be the KPI that's going to tell me the really encapsulate the point that I'm looking for. another KPI is if I want to look at my total costs and look at the return. So the return, we'll call it the RONMMM, return on new media marketing. That would be a KPI for your entire effort. The revenue that's brought in minus the cost. Okay, that's a lot. You may want to, Ken, did when the course, I don't know where Maria pulled the course from that she put into your section. So on the new media link for Zoom, do you have archives listed?
I believe that I have archives for weeks 1, 2, and 3. I'm double checking that real quick. Let's see, archive session week 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I don't have an archive session for week 4.
I'll add that to my list of what I want to send you.
Okay.
So you can add that. What I was going to say is, this is the first time Ken and I have partnered. This is very typical of my Zoom sessions. They're really very much a conversation, but we do push a lot of information. I try to make it like if we were in a classroom together from that perspective. And so everyone is similar, but everyone is just a little bit different. And if you take a look at the archive link and you can kind of scrub through it and see if there's anything that looks a little bit different that you may want to listen to for a little bit, it'll add additional information for you that you can gain out of the week 1 experience. Okay?
Okay.
Excellent. Ken, any concluding comments?
I would just mention that one thing to always keep in mind, and I try to hammer this idea home to my bachelor's digital marketing students, is always remember the buyer's journey, which is that awareness. If you think of yourself as someone who is purchasing a product or a service, first you become aware of a business, then you consider making a purchase from that business. So that's the consideration phase. Then you move into a purchase phase where you would actually say, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to do this, and you make the purchase. And then a loyalty phase. Are you loyal to that business or are you not, and why? Always consider why someone would or would not choose to be loyal to a business. I think that those steps of that buyer's journey are just really important to understanding why we're doing what we're doing and why we want to become marketers. And then the other thing is, John had mentioned research earlier, and the first thought that popped into my mind when he said that was a quote from Benjamin Franklin. Years ago, Benjamin Franklin said, "Ideas are like rabbits. Once you have a couple, you soon have 100. So when you're doing your research, if you just get a couple of ideas, you'll soon have 100.
Excellent. And Ken, it's funny. I discussed I think last month I had somehow worked in, and I think it was in week 1, it may have been in week 2, the buyer's journey and the funnel. So it's in one of those archives, either week 1 or week 2. Excellent.
Awesome.
I'm going to leave you all with just a final thought and a question. And I never know which one of these pictures to pick. So let me do this one. And this should be the picture that you're seeing right there. Can you tell me what that is?
Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve at the tree, choosing what fruit to pick.
Yes. Notice whose hand is on the fruit.
Eve.
Eve.
They're doing
Who is the
research.
marketer? Who is the marketer in that picture?
The devil.
Everybody agree on that?
Yeah. Yes.
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 What have I just proved to you? Do you know
That we're the devil.
Or the devil.
that marketing is the root of all evil?
Mhm. Yeah.
So be careful out there and do good. Okay?
With great power comes great responsibility.
Amen. Couldn't have said that better. All right, everybody. By the way, Mr. Cruz, what's your first name?
Gilbert.
Gilbert, which section are you in?
Kenneth. Mr.
Okay. Then I'm not going to tell you necessarily how to get in touch with me. Actually, I'm in the phone book. Actually, that's not true anymore because a couple months ago I did away with my landline. We don't have kids anymore at home.
You know what? If you guys need to get in touch with John, you can always message me, and I'll just freely share his cell phone number with you guys.
His home address and
Yeah.
I actually my
Money.
for my students they have my cell phone number and everything. I live on my phone. I have a friend that's a retired New York City detective that's on contract with the city last night. I fell asleep, and he was giving me updates on what was going on in New York City. I was up until 3:30 in the morning, catching the updates. And part of that was my other child that graduated from Full Sail with an entertainment business degree. An entertainment business degree. Think about that. Guess what he does today?
he works in New York.
He
No.
works with,
What were you going to say, Valerie?
I was going to say he works in New York at one of the centers, athletes centers.
Couldn't be further from the truth.
Oh.
He's an Orlando Police Department officer, and he's been on double shifts and not getting in till 3-4 o'clock. He's married and has his own home, but I still wait for my daughter-in-law to call me and say he's home safe. So I've been pulling the late midnight hour the last couple nights. But at any rate, don't let marketing be the root of evil. You guys do good. Okay?
Thank
All right. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Valerie.